All right, we'd like to welcome Chris Smith. Chris Smith owns Smith Auto Sales just outside of Dayton, Ohio, as well as he's a real estate agent with Keller Williams. So thanks, Chris, for taking the time today to be with us on the Championship Leadership Podcast. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've actually listened to I think all the podcasts you've done, and it's nice to be on something I'm actually a fan of. So I'm pretty excited about it today.
Awesome, man. Well, it's good to hear that someone's listening out there. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So the name, you probably heard this question a few times. The name of the podcast, Championship Leadership. What's the first thing that comes in your mind when you hear Championship Leadership?
In my opinion, it's probably the highest form of leadership. Just championship leadership. The first quality that comes to mind is just someone being able to stay powerful in all aspects, in all situations of being a leader. To me, it's easy to be a leader, especially in my business, and I'm sure everything else. It's easy to be a leader when things are going good, and there's no issues and everything's going good. But when things get bad and turmoil happens and things don't happen the way you plan, really staying calm and collected and being a leader at that moment, to me, is a championship leader.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the defining moments, right?
Yeah.
It's easy in all areas of life when things are going really well, and we find the true test or character of a man or a woman when things aren't going so smooth. So yeah, I love that. That's great. Who are a few leaders maybe in your life that you think of or that come to mind when you think of championship leadership? Like who are some leaders that really have impacted your life?
So like growing up, I was a huge Chicago Bulls fan, and always watching Michael Jordan. It just seemed like when he had to make that game-winning shot or he had to do something impossible, I mean, just the demeanor on his face, he was calm, he was collected, and the guy always got the job done. He was this. Yeah, right. He was this from another planet, So I always looked at him growing up as like, man, that guy is a true leader. I mean, he took his teammates and made them better. He took the sport and made it better, So that guy to me was definitely a true leader,
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I kind of grew up in that same era, and it was just so fun to watch. And I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just, maybe every generation has that, right? Where you think your players in their prime in your generation were the best ever, but I'm sure there's something to that. But Jordan was definitely something special that, you got the LeBron MJ debate going on nowadays, and it's always a tough one. But yeah, when I watched MJ, like you said, man, it's just you just knew you knew he was always going to pull through, and he did.
It was shocking if he didn't. Like if he missed a shot, it was like, what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because we used to go over to Indianapolis and watch some NBA games, and we had tickets for the Bulls to come in, and it just so happened to be the game he was coming back from retirement, and we had no clue when we bought the tickets. It just worked out that way.
No way.
It was, and that's one memory I always have growing up. Was I was at that game.
The first time back from retirement?
Yeah, wearing the 45 jersey and all that stuff. Yeah.
Wasn't that weird? I remember seeing that, and I was like,
yeah,
did not look right. 45, but he only stuck with that for I think that the end of that season, right?
Yeah.
What about anyone else in your life, like growing up, that you look to as a leader, a mentor, someone that sticks out?
Yeah, there's absolutely. Like growing up, I played sports. I remember like the first coach, he was a basketball coach, and he was like the first coach that was really hard on us. It was like I remember being in locker rooms where he was throwing stuff and yelling and screaming and all that stuff. And I remember one time he was really hard on me. We had lost the game, and I had played horribly, and he yelled at me and screamed. And then like 10 minutes later, he come back in and he said, he goes, "I want you to always listen to what I'm saying and not how I'm saying it." And that always stuck with me through life or whatever. But I just remember he kind of took me under his wing, and basketball wasn't my number one sport. I was more of a baseball player. And, man, he really just made me work ethic wise. I mean, I remember doing double, triple practices with him just to try to get a little bit better. And he was always there, and he was always just had the time to take extra time with me, and the knowledge he gave me, and even outside the basketball court, he was a really good guy. And there's a whole group of coaches. There's like 3 of them, and they all had that characteristic. And it was probably made me who I was a little bit work ethic wise moving forward with business and everything else. But they really instilled that in me at a young age. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, I had similar coaches, and I think there's a lot of coaches or even leaders that will kind of yell and scream, but won't come back and communicate that message. Because had he not done that, you probably, I can remember as a kid, you mostly listened to how they said it, not what they were saying. And it would take a really intuitive young man, especially in, at that age, to really be kind of almost a little older than they are, to really understand that maybe because they're doing that is because they really care, or to know more, to listen to what they're saying than how they're saying it. Like, so it's powerful for that leader, that coach of yours, to come and say that to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had that impact, and you probably wouldn't have seen it the way that he wanted you to, I guess, really in the end. And I think that's when I think of communication with leaders, I think it's because everybody's a little different, right? He might have done that because he knows that you respond well to that, because certain people kind of need to get yelled at and screamed at and like it, and it motivates them and drives them, and they probably know in the back of their minds that it's not personal, right? But then there's others that just, I can think of my kids. My kids are a great example of that. They all kind of respond differently to different ways of us parenting and how we communicate and talk to them. And a great leader, I think, just recognizes that and gets to know everyone on their team or everyone that's following them to a point where they know how to communicate with each and every one of them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Part of that came in light to me with business, because when I opened up my dealership, it kind of took off, and I never really looked at myself as a leader or anything like that. And things weren't getting done, the way I was expecting them to get done. And it finally took me time to realize, like, hey, I need to communicate, like, with these guys. I need to communicate, and we all need to be on the same page and everything else. And it's true, if you don't have communication in any relationship, especially trying to lead a business or something like that, if you don't have the right communication skills, that you're going to be going in circles for a while.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your story or your journey to today. Like, what's led you to Smith's Auto Sales and getting into real estate? Like, how did that happen? Like, what was the journey for you, like, out of high school into where you are today? Obviously, you're married as well and have a son. Have you always been in Ohio? Like, kind of give us a little background and how you got to where you are today.
I've always been in Ohio. I was born and raised just in between Dayton and Cincinnati, Ohio, and grew up in a small town called Waynesville. And I remember I was like 14. And my dad was in the car business. My grandfather was in the car business. But my dad had a shop out back behind our house where he was reconditioning the cars and all that stuff. I was like 14. It was summer vacation, and I was playing baseball, but baseball was only like 2 or 3 days a week in my summer league. And all my friends, they were out, going to amusement parks and all that stuff, and that wasn't me. And I remember I was bored as hell it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, it was through the week, and I asked my dad, like, is there anything I can do, to make some money or something? I was 14, I didn't have a driver's license, I couldn't go anywhere. And he was like, yeah, you can start detailing cars in the back if you want, and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. And that's where it all started at. I started detailing cars, and that led to having my own detail business. And I did that, and then when I was 16, 2 years later, I was running a crew of like 3 or 4 guys. We were doing 20 to 30 cars out of my back of my house. And I remember there'd be days we'd work till 2 or 3 in the morning, get up a few hours later and go to school and then do it all over again. And then after After high school, I did 2 more years of detailing cars, and it wasn't cutting the bills. I bought a house when I was young, and I needed to make more money, so I just literally sold all my assets that I had. I had a few cars and stuff, and sold them all. Invested into used cars, and I started out with 2 cars, and just slowly started growing. So now here we are. I've been at this location for 7 years now, and we specialize in lifted diesel trucks and sports cars, and we're running 4 or 5 million in sales a year now out of here. So
Wow.
It's been a long journey with that, and just recently got licensed as a realtor. Just something that I kind of wanted to start dabbling in to open up, more opportunities long term, maybe some flip homes, rentals, that type of thing. So,
how long ago was it that you actually started with the 2 cars? Was that 7 years ago?
No. That was 16 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started with 2 cars. I remember I had 2 or 3 show cars of my own. I needed money to start up, so I sold them, and I went to the car auction. It was I bought a Chevy Trailblazer and a Dodge Durango, and I think I lost money on the Blazer and I lost money on the Durango. I broke even at the end of the day. It was like that for a while, It was just like getting in. I was just throwing darts, and finally started making some connections and networking with other dealers, and how I started was I was wholesaling dealers other cars I never even sold to the public.
Okay.
That's how I started growing. And the location where we're at now is I bought it just for storage because I outgrew my home garage. I outgrew it, and I needed more places to store my inventory.
Yeah.
And so I had cars sitting out here, and then people started coming in to buy them, and I threw a sign up and changed my license address to here, and that's been the story ever since.
Well, that's awesome, man. Talk a little bit about that. Like you said, it's easy when things are going really well, and then the true character of a leader really kind of comes out when it's tough. And I just know as a business owner and an entrepreneur, it's not always all roses. And 16 years of being in business, I'm sure there's lots of ups and lots of downs, but you always kind of find a way to get through it. So talk about maybe how that's impacted you as a business owner, entrepreneur, and made you a better person, and maybe even how that's impacted the other areas of your life as well.
So we've been going through a lot of changes here the past year, and they all haven't been, financially favorable to us. We've been going through some liquidations and stuff, and we've hit some speed bumps here and there. And, I've really noticed that if I stay calm in those situations, I can really relay to my guys what needs to be done for us to get out of a situation quicker, or for us to better our situation. And it used to not be that way. I used to be just as flustered as them, and we would all be kind of running around, running in circles, and, really we just kind of sit down now, and we all got a calm head on us, and we talk it out, and we come up with the exact plan of what we need to do. And, we execute it. And if we don't get it executed, we'll figure it out as we go along and come up with a new goal. And it kind of has been a life-changing experience adapting to that persona, because, even, raising a kid, instead of yelling and screaming and getting out of control, I just, sit down, talk to him, and have a calm conversation with him, and come up with a plan, and hopefully he listens and takes it in. And if not, we'll go another route with it. But I always kind of look at, I have this conversation with my wife all the time, because, I'll be like, you just need to calm down and let's figure this out. And I always like to use the analogy of, like, if you wake up in the middle of the night and your house is on fire and you need to get your family out of there, are you going to get up and you're going to be frazzled and out of control and not have a plan? And are you going to stay calm and figure out what needs to be done next to get everyone out of the house safely? And I use that analogy all the time at work and with my family and everything else. So it kind of put it in perspective for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, have that plan, that contingency. You talked about, not being in a frenzy, right? Especially when you're going through a little rough stretch or whatever you want to call it, downturn, dip. Um, and I mean, your team, like you said, you got employees and they feed off the leader, right? And so when you're all frenzied, what are they going to do? They're going to do the same thing, just like our kids will do, just like in any relationship that we have. When we're working in chaos and frenzied and out of control, everybody else around us is going to do that same thing. They're going to take the lead from the person that's in charge. And so, yeah, that's when did you really figure that out for yourself?
It's been just recently,
Yeah.
doing the coaching with you and Satima, coming back from immersion. I made a bunch of life changes, and that was one of them. It was, going through that whole program. It was like it showed what was really important, and it showed like the real consequences. Like I used to freak out about business and money and everything else, and when you get down to the root of it, like, well, what's really the worst case scenario of what happens, And of course, bad things could happen. You go out of business, go bankrupt, and everything, but you're still going to have your family and your loved ones, and you're going to have a plan to make more money. And but at the same time, I also feel like if you have a plan and you stay calm and you're executing it, like, it really lessens the chance of any of those really bad things to happen. I know now when I see something ahead of me that's a hurdle or a task or a challenge, I face it head on, and it's like, all right, I know this is coming. Like, what do we got to do to get out of it? And it's not. I don't waste 2 or 3 days running around the house frantic trying to figure it out. It's like, let's just face it head on and let's get it done.
Yeah, I love it. And it's easier said than done sometimes, but at the same time, when you run around frantic, it's almost like you're just so consumed by what could happen that you're not in action. You're not doing anything to help you to get out of it. So, what I hear you saying is, we're just staying calm and knowing that if we continue to do X, Y, and Z, like the results will happen. It might not happen exactly when we want them to, but they'll definitely happen. And then you just continue that momentum and you continue that action and then you come out on the other side of it, which is when it can really start to take off for us. So what's a turning point in your life that, we all have them, right? Usually there's 1 or 2 major turning points that most people have in their life that they can think of automatically when someone brings up that topic, to where you could very easily be somewhere else in your life right now. But because you made that decision, and normally it's a decision that's not easy, or from the outside looking in, it's not easy, but it's the right one. The difficult decisions aren't always the easy ones, but they're, if you choose wisely, you end up where you are today, or you could end up somewhere completely different, or, depending on what it is or what was going on in your life, could end up dead. Right. So is there a major turning point in your life where, a lot of people were going one direction and you decided, at that point in time that you needed to go another, and that has really brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So back when I was in the car business, I was young and I had never had a job. I've never filled out a job application. I never worked for anybody. And so with that came, pretty good money at a young age for me, and I had a bunch of free time. And a lot of what I did was, I was partying and drinking away my money. And, it started off just kind of an innocent thing that I did when I was younger. And, I just kept doing it, and it kept progressing. And it started becoming a huge problem for me. I was drinking all through the week, getting off work early, drinking, staying up all night, probably going to work still drunk from the night before. And it really got to a problem where there was a couple times I had been arrested for some stuff I didn't even remember. And the last time I was arrested is me and my wife, we were dating for about a year. And it was just like a turning point. Like she was out the door, she was leaving. and I had to figure out what I was going to do. I mean, because I was making choices that were horrible. My business was slipping away. Relationships were slipping away. And the people I had around me at the time, I don't want to say they were necessarily bad people, but, you know, they were hanging out for me for probably the wrong reasons. You know, I was supplying the party for everybody. And so that night happened. I was arrested for the second or third time. And it was like, all right, I knew I had to make a decision. And I got on the phone, and I remember I called a local place to go to some AA meetings, and went to an AA meeting, and I went to the guy that was doing the meeting. I said, man, this is not for me. Like, I know I need to change, but this is not for me. So me and him had a couple sessions one-on-one, and I just kind of cut it cold turkey, you know, and it wasn't easy. But I look back on it, you know, that was 7 years ago. I've been sober for 7 years now. And what's funny, and the one thing I take away from it is, like, I always grew up saying I was never going to have kids. And like, the first baby I held was my son. Like, I never changed a diaper, never held a baby or anything. And almost 8 months into me being sober, my wife got pregnant. And I really look at, like, God had a plan for me. Like, he knew I wasn't ready until I made this step. And then he supplied me with my wife and my child. And I haven't had a sip of alcohol since. You know, it really brought clarity to my life. And, you know, I don't look down on people that drink. I just know it's not for me. It's not something that works for me. It doesn't serve me, and it causes problems. And but it's the one point in my life where things got really clear about the person I needed to slowly become, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It's a powerful story that you had there, and one that I'm sure that can and probably has helped others in similar situations, right? It's you know, alcohol is a powerful addiction that many have and many struggle with, and for you to be able to do that and kind of do it on your own. Was there anyone else really in that journey that helped you through that, or was it really truly just kind of a decision that you made and just one that you were able to stick with?
You know, I kept it a secret for a long time. Like, I just didn't want to be like one of those guys that was like, hey, I'm being sober now, and I didn't want to be judged for it, and I didn't want to explain myself.
Yeah.
My wife always, you know, she always stuck by my side. I remember when I first started, the first few months, like, it was hard for me, especially on like a weekend night, like, to not do anything. And I remember plenty of nights we'd be up till 2 or 3 in the morning playing Monopoly and Scrabble just to keep my mind off of it. She was always there to come up with that stuff for me. And I had another good friend named Thomas that was, I mean, he was always just non-judgmental, ready to talk with me or whatever he needed to do. And, you know, I did keep it a secret for a long time. And then I think about 3 years ago, I made a Facebook post just talking about how, you know, I was like 4 years sober or something like that. And the feedback I got, like the messages I got, kept rolling in. And people talk about how inspiring it was and everything else. And I had a bunch of people hit me up like, hey, how'd you do it? You know, can you help me and everything else? So it's something I wish I would have shared earlier. I didn't. But now that I am very open about it, I do get a chance to talk people through some things.
Yeah, man.
And that's the most serving thing of it all. I mean, that's just, it's very humbling to me, you know?
Yeah, so you can think of, you know, maybe you probably just weren't ready, right, to share it, and you shared it, you know, just when it was probably the right time to do that. I can't imagine, you know, there's a lot of friends probably that you had, and maybe relationships that you had to move on from. You find out who your real friends are, you know, like the one that I think you mentioned that are there no matter what and just support you. And yeah, it's an amazing story that you have, because I know it's not easy, and it's not easy from a lot of different angles, right? It's the one thing to just quit the addiction or quit the habit of drinking and to deal with that. And then you got all the other pieces, the social pieces, the you know, the pressure from others, the like, oh, come on, why can't you do this or that, or have a few drinks and have a good time, or whatever it might be. So yeah, powerful story. I appreciate you sharing that. And so what did that do for you personally inside of your business when you made that shift? Like, did you see a change there?
Yeah. You know, when I made that shift, you know, everything became a lot more clear to me. And I really started to have time to actually focus on what was important. And one of the things I wasn't taking so seriously was my business. And it allowed me to focus more time on it. I had more thoughts for it. Because literally I was coming in here probably half a day and doing the minimum and going out for the next party. And, when you cut that lifestyle out, you get so much more time to do other things. And one of the things I did focus on was my business. And especially when my wife got pregnant, it was like, okay, now I got to get to work. It's time to provide for her family. And it just all worked out in such the perfect way to where I was ready to take care of responsibilities and ready to really focus on what was important. But my business got real clear. I could really dig deep into it and start coming up with new thoughts and new ideas and strategies and all that stuff. So it let everything become real for me,
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about, obviously you came through Man Wealth Immersion and inside of our Circle of Champions, the coaching programs that we have. But that's kind of been a path that you've been on for at least a few years now, right? Of investing in yourself and into your business so that you can grow and have the life that you want. But that's, when you get in that phase of life, when you can see that the money that you're going to invest into these coaching programs is not like money spent, but that's an investment that's actually going to give you a return, compounded, right? How did you get to that place? And, because I just talked to actually Brian Stahl, and we were talking about coaching, and he's getting coached by David Goggins. And I said I'd have some interest in talking with him or see if that would ever be a possibility. And he's like, well, why? He's like, I wouldn't think that you would need to for whatever reason. And I was like, well, as a coach, I tell people all the time, like if you have a coach that isn't being coached or isn't open to being coached, you probably should run and go the other way.
Right.
If they're not willing to invest in themselves, just like they're asking others to invest in them, then there's an issue there. But talk, because I know what the impact it's made for me in my life across the board. I could go physical, spiritual, relational, financial, and just, talk about the impact it's made and the results that I have today that I wouldn't have if I hadn't made that decision to make that investment. I think a true leader, a championship level leader, is always looking to get better, to learn the things that they don't know and to learn from other leaders that can help them to get them and their team where they want to go. So yeah, how's that impacted you? And how did you get to that point? Or what made you first decide that, that was something that you wanted even?
Honestly, it never occurred to me it was something that I wanted to do. I remember the first, it was in the wintertime and I was scrolling through Facebook and I kept seeing Ryan Stewman's ads. And I caught a live video of him right before one of his Break Free Academy events. And he was talking about stuff. And man, I had business questions that I would go ask people. No one had the answers to the stuff I was asking. And I was like, man, I just need to get there. Like I need to go to that class. I just need to talk to this guy, you know? And I got on the call with one of the sales reps, Roxanne, and we were going through things. I knew she was going to tell me how much it was, and I knew I wasn't going to have the money for it.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and she was like, it's this amount of money, and you can make payments on it and everything else. And I was just like, here's my card number, let me figure it out along the way. So that was in March, I was going to go do that. And in February, I connected with a guy named Mark Jennison, who was also with Ryan, and he was a real big car sales guy. And he actually came. I hired him to come to my dealership, train my guys, train me on some stuff. And 2 weeks later, I flew out to Dallas, did the Break Free Academy Live with Ryan. And, it was just overwhelming. And it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, like, hey, I got some answers. Like, there are people out here that have answers for me. So I invested with Ryan for another I'm still invested with Ryan, but I did his program and everything else. And I was at an event where Satema came to speak at. And there was probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 speakers through that weekend. And I had my family down there in Dallas with me because we kind of took like a little mini vacation for the week, and I had 2 days at the event.
Okay.
And so September got on the stage and he started talking, and I was like, man, this guy, I went back to the hotel and I said, this guy right here, like he was speaking to me. Like this guy it was like he was speaking right to me. And I think I got home, and that's when I got on the phone call with you and everything else. And fast forward to, a couple months ago at Immersion, it was, I'm not just saying this because me and you are on a podcast together or anything like that, but it was the most life-changing experience I probably have ever had in my life. And it's brought so many different aspects of my life just to make them better, just to live the best life that I can. It's just brought so much support, so much information, and just value to my life and to my family's life. It's been unbelievable. And I am 100% sold on investing in yourself. If for someone out there listening, it might not be Immersion or Ryan Stewman, but you can go out there and there's literally so many types of coaching and different things that you can connect with. And that's my main thing is you got to find someone you connect with to really be able to get all of it out of it, And it's funny because right before I went through Immersion, I only knew one other guy that had been through the program, and I didn't want to know too much about it before I went in, and I just said, hey, don't give me any details. I don't really want to know what is going to happen. I'd like, what's your best advice? And he said, the more open you are when you go there, the more you'll get out of it. And that kind of goes like, to me, it goes for everything in life and with investing in yourself. Like if you're open and you're honest, like you'll actually get the help that you need. So that would be my my advice for anyone that is looking to start investing in themselves heavily is you get hooked up with a coach that connects with you and just be open about what you need help with. So many people, kind of stray away from telling the truth, but that's the only way you're going to get the real answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Who was the guy that came through?
KT.
Oh, KT. Okay, yeah. Did you meet him? You probably met him through Stewman as well, right?
Yeah, I met him through Stewman. Yeah, and he was, like I say, he was the only guy. I probably did know some other guys that went through, but I just remember seeing him go through it, and I shot him a quick message, probably like the day before I flew out.
That's great, man. And yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a lot of money on yourself either. I mean, there's so many opportunities, there's so many ways, so many different people that are willing to help that can help you to see some things that you just can't see for yourself and to continue to grow. I think the so-called leaders, or maybe even the people that are in leadership positions, but not necessarily the leaders, are the ones that aren't on that championship level, that are kind of stagnant, are the ones that think that they know it all or think that they have it all figured out, or maybe they're just too proud for whatever reason to go and get the help that they maybe even know deep down inside that they need to help them to continue to grow and move. And, again, championship leadership, it's all about continuing to just grow, expand, and get a little bit better and have no ego about it, right? To be like, why wouldn't I go and talk to somebody that is in a place in one area or another that can help me to get there as well? So yeah, I love it. That's great, man. And you see the results. We've seen the results. Obviously, you're doing the work and you're living it, but from Immersion to today, which has been a really short time, I'm sure it feels longer than it has. It's only, I think, been a few months, but it's just great to see the growth and the changes that are happening for you. So what's as we wrap this up, what's one or two things you could leave with the listeners to help them continue on their path to continue to get a little bit better, whether that's leadership or just life experiences or lessons that you learned along the way?
One thing I've learned recently that's helped me make huge leaps and bounds for me in my relationships personally and in my business is to really find a network that you can communicate with. There, even when I was investing in myself, like I didn't reach out to people, I didn't talk about things, I didn't talk about my problems as openly. But you'd be surprised about how many people have either went through the things you're going through or are actually going through them right now. And man, when you can actually talk to someone about the true problems or challenges that you have, and you can bounce those ideas and thoughts and feelings off of each other. And it's a hard thing to do. It's not easy to do. But when you can really do that, it makes life so much easier. It makes business easier. It makes your relationships easier. And it makes your problems so much smaller. And it just makes life easier. And that's the one thing that I've done recently that has helped my business and my life to no end. I mean, I found a group of guys and some friends and some coaches that I can talk and really get to the bottom of things with. And it's funny because they've all went through something that I've been through or they're going through it now. It's I always thought I was the only one going through these problems, and it's by far not the case.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love that, man, because I was thinking about this. I was on a run the other day. I'm getting ready to run 200 miles here in a few weeks and to attempt to. And I had this thought. I was thinking about that, what you just said, right? I mean, there's so much power in sharing and being vulnerable, but so many people don't. And I remember at one time in my life where I really thought that there were people out there that just had it all together, that really didn't have any struggle or didn't have or have lived the perfect life where they've made all the right decisions and have never made a wrong one and or don't have any regrets, right? And it's really this fairy tale, because there's really no one out there, right? And so when it comes down to it, like you said, we're all very similar. We're way more similar than we believe, but yet we all believe that we're so unique or different, right? And then it comes to someone like yourself that's willing to share the story, and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Holy cow. It's or when you watch Satema speak and you're like, oh man, he's speaking right to me. And so there's just that power in it. But too many people are afraid to let it open, I suppose, maybe because of what they're afraid what people are going to think of them. But yeah, it's powerful when you can get to that place in your life, when you can just really be real. And I think it's freeing too, and just to be unapologetic and just own it too. There's so much power there. So really appreciate people like you in my life that are willing to do that. So thanks, man. I really appreciate you being here on the Championship Leadership Podcast. It's been an honor, man.
Yeah, man, I loved it. This is definitely the coolest thing I've probably done today. So
I love it. I love it, brother. Well, thanks. And yeah, as soon as we'll get this out, we'll get it to you. What are a few ways that people can follow you before we do finish and close this out? What are a few ways that people can follow you and continue to see and hear about your story?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. The Facebook is you can just look me up. You can either look up my dealership at Smith's Auto Sales, or it's under Chris Smith. The Instagram is also Smith's Auto Sales. You can follow me there. I also have a free app you can download. You can text the word truck, TRUCK, to 36260. That'll give you a link that gives you right to my cell phone, my email. You can order my book through it. It'll link you to all my websites. So that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me for sure.
What's the name of your book?
It's called Behind the Wheel.
Okay.
And it pretty much touches on what we've been talking about the past few minutes here. So, it goes through my business and, just my struggles with alcohol and all that type of stuff. So.
All right, man. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a great one.
See you, buddy.